The courtroom doors slammed open, echoing like a gunshot. My only sister rose from her seat, her voice sharp, calculated, weaponized. "She's just a homeless veteran." The words didn't land, they exploded. Gasps rippled through the room. Polished shoes shifted. Eyes turned. But I didn't flinch, I just watched her. My own blood trying to erase me in front of strangers. Strip me down to nothing. Piece by piece. Then I stood, no rush, no hesitation. I walked straight to the judge's bench and placed a single document in front of him. One page, one truth. He read it once, then again. His expression hardened. He looked up slowly and his voice cut through the courtroom like a blade. "Lock the doors." A pause. "No one leaves this room." And just like that, everything changed. But before the courtroom, before the betrayal was exposed, let's go back to where it all began. The cab drove off, leaving me alone in the quiet. The air smelled like rain and dust, thick, heavy, the kind that clings to your boots and your memories. 1722 Spring Lane stood exactly where it always had, but it didn't feel like home. Not anymore. The porch light flickered above the door, not welcoming. But warning, there was a keypad on the gate, new locks. A crooked "for sale" sign swayed in the yard, creaking softly in the wind. I stood there, my discharge papers still tucked inside my bag. 25 years of service. Folded neatly like they meant nothing. I thought I was coming home. I was wrong. "You can't be here, Madison." My sister's voice crackled through the intercom. Cold. Rehearsed. For a second I actually smiled. I thought it was a joke. "Courtney, open the gate," I said. "I just want to see Mom." "She doesn't want to see you." A beat. "None of us do." That one hit deeper than anything I'd faced in the field. I stepped closer to the gate. "I just want to talk." Silence. Then the words that sealed everything. "You left. You disappeared. You're not in the will." 10 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. The younger officer checked the papers Courtney handed him. "This property belongs to Mason Clarkson and Courtney Peterson." The older officer studied me, then his eyes landed on the insignia stitched into my jacket. Recognition. "Lieutenant Clarkson?" I nodded. He exhaled slowly. "Ma'am, I'm sorry. You'll have to leave." The gate shut behind me with a cold metallic click. And somehow that sound stayed with me, like something locking inside my chest. I walked back to the sidewalk, the same one where my grandfather once taught me Morse code. Back then, every tap meant something. Now, all I could read was silence. That night, I stayed in my car 2 blocks away. The house glowed softly through the trees, every window lit, every room alive, but not for me. Inside, my family moved on like I never existed. I watched until dawn. And somewhere between the darkness and the morning light, I remembered the last thing my grandfather ever told me. "Every lie leaves a trace, Madison." A pause. "Even family lies." At the time, I didn't understand, but I would, soon enough. The next morning, I sat in a quiet cafe off Jackson Street. Burnt coffee, muted conversations, the kind of place where bad news feels almost gentle. Abby Williams was already there. Hair pinned back, dark blazer, sharp eyes. Still the same woman who used to dismantle arguments like it was sport. She didn't hug me, didn't ask how I was. She just slid a tablet across the table. "You need to see this." On the screen, 1722 Spring Lane, listed for sale. Owner, Canyon Hills Holdings LLC. My stomach dropped. "That's impossible." Abby zoomed in, and there it was, my name, signed neatly in black ink. Perfect. Too perfect. "That's not my signature." "I know," she said quietly. "It's forged." The room felt like it tilted. "Notary stamp traces back to someone suspended last year," Abby added. "Falsifying documents." I stared at the screen. "They didn't just take it," my voice barely held. "They built an entire lie to make it look legal." Abby nodded. "Your sister's husband, Brandon Peterson, is listed as logistics contact." She tapped again. "And your father appears on multiple payment approvals." That hit harder than anything else. Not the fraud, not the theft, but the coordination. The planning, the betrayal, my own family, turned my life into paperwork. "My grandfather told me the house would be mine," I said quietly. "He told me himself the day before he died." "Then there's proof," Abby replied. "There has to be." And that's when it hit me. My old laptop. I leaned forward. I digitized everything, his files, his records, all of it. Abby's eyes sharpened. "If you find even one inconsistency, timestamps, handwriting, financial logs, it's enough to reopen the case." I nodded, slowly. "I'll find it." By the time I left the cafe, the shock was gone, replaced by something colder, sharper, focused. "They think I won't fight back," I muttered as the wind picked up around me. They forgot who taught me how to fight. That night my apartment looked like a war zone. Boxes everywhere. Old tins, drives, stacks of notebooks that smelled like cedar and thyme. Every small sound felt louder, every second heavier. Until finally I found it. A hard drive. Labeled in my grandfather's shaky handwriting, Family Archive. When the screen flickered to life, so did his voice in my memory. Every lie leaves a trace, and I found the first one. Fast, too fast, a digital copy of his will. Signed, dated, witnessed, everything clean, everything real, and the name on it? Mine. But when I compared it to the version filed by Courtney's lawyer, the difference was obvious. Theirs was flawless, perfect curves, smooth lines, like it had been manufactured. Not written. By midnight, my desk was covered in evidence. Printouts, highlighted lines, notes scribbled in every margin. I wasn't grieving anymore. I was building a case. The next morning, Abby called. I reached out to someone who can trace the money. Dean, I said, a pause, you still trust him? With my life. An hour later, we were on a secure call. Dean's voice came through steady, sharp, familiar. Long time, Locke, he said. You always did attract trouble. Not like this, I replied. This time it's blood. He went to work immediately, tracing accounts, cross-referencing transactions, pulling threads, and within minutes the truth started surfacing. Names, connections, patterns. Brandon Peterson is moving the money, Dean said. Your father's signing off on it. A pause. Classic internal laundering. I didn't feel fear. Not anymore, just clarity. Can you pull the source documents? Already done, he replied, then his tone shifted. But Madison, be careful. These people aren't amateurs. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. You're playing with fire, we have your psych file. I stared at the screen, jaw tight. They wanted me unstable, discredited, silenced. Again, but all I heard was a challenge. I turned off my phone. Opened my laptop. Connected to Abby and Dean. We start tonight, I said. Line by line we tear it all apart. Hours passed, then more, and slowly the pattern revealed itself. Falsified transfers, hidden payments, altered notarizations. Every lie timestamped, every deception traceable. By sunrise I had it. The one thing they never expected me to find. The original deed, digitally verified, untouched, unbreakable. And attached to it a recorded message. My grandfather's voice. Clear, certain, final, the truth they buried. And the reason that courtroom door would soon be locked. I stared at the document for a long moment, then slid it carefully into a folder. This is it, I whispered. One paper, that's all it takes. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Maybe it was the marble. Maybe it was the silence, the kind that presses against your skin until you can feel your heartbeat in your throat. I sat upright, hands clasped. The creases in my uniform were razor sharp. 25 years of service had taught me one thing. Stand tall even when the world tries to shrink you. Across the aisle sat my family. My father Mason Clarkson perfect in a navy suit, pretending I didn't exist. My sister Courtney poised, polished, pearl earrings catching the light. And Brandon scrolling through his phone like justice was an inconvenience. Lieutenant Colonel Madison Clarkson, plaintiff, the bailiff's voice echoed. I stood. The title still felt strange when someone else said it. For a brief second I caught my father's eyes. Calm, too calm, the kind of calm that comes from thinking you've already won. The case began. The prosecution laid everything out. Altered payments, forged documents, illegal notarizations tied to a suspended license. Months of work, piece by piece, truth by truth. Beside me, Abby flipped through her notes. Calm, precise, unshaken, she didn't need to speak. The evidence was already louder than any argument, but the defense they came armed with venom. Their lawyer didn't attack the case, he attacked me. Unstable, traumatized, a soldier who can't separate reality from paranoia. A woman who refuses to move on. And then Courtney stood. She's just a homeless veteran? Her voice cracked through the courtroom like gunfire. The words hit, sharp, ugly, deliberate, gasps, whispers, eyes turning, judgment spreading like wildfire. The judge slammed his gavel. Order! But the damage was done, and still I didn't react. Didn't blink, didn't defend myself. When the silence returned, I stood. Your Honor, I said calmly, may I approach? A pause, then a nod. My heels echoed against the floor, each step measured. Final, when I reached the bench, I placed the folder in front of him. One document, I said, from the original estate registry, verified through federal audit. He opened it, read once, then again, His expression shifted. Confusion, recognition, then disbelief. He tapped the gavel once. "Lock the doors." The room froze. "No one leaves this courtroom." The bailiff moved immediately, doors shut, locked, sealed, and just like that the power shifted. Courtney's confidence shattered. Brandon finally looked up, his face draining of color. My father sat perfectly still, but I saw it. The crack. The judge's voice was firm. "These documents show a forged deed, falsified transfer payments, and unauthorized use of a military ID." He looked directly at my father. "The authorization trail leads to you, Mr. Clarkson." No denial, no outrage, no defense, just a quiet exhale and a man realizing the end had arrived. Behind them, my mother trembled. Her hand covered her mouth, tears falling silently. Courtney tried to speak, but nothing came out. The same voice that called me nothing couldn't even form a sentence. Abby stood beside me, steady, unshakable. "Your Honor," she said, "we have corroborating evidence of interstate financial fraud and coercion, all verified through federal channels." The judge nodded. "The court will recess briefly for verification." When he left, the silence was suffocating. My father's lawyer whispered urgently beside him, but Mason didn't respond. He just stared forward. Then slowly he turned to me. "You didn't have to do this," he said quietly. "Family stays quiet." I met his eyes. "Family doesn't steal." That was it. No anger, no shouting, just truth. Courtney broke first, tears cutting through carefully applied makeup. "It was Dad's idea," she said, voice shaking. "He said you wouldn't care you were gone, you had your career." I didn't answer. She didn't deserve one. When the judge returned, his voice carried finality. "This court finds sufficient evidence of fraud, forgery, and willful misrepresentation." A pause. "The estate at 1722 Spring Lane will be restored to its rightful heir." He looked at them. "Criminal charges will proceed immediately." Then he looked at me. "Lieutenant Clarkson, do you wish to address the court?" For a moment, everything I had buried rose to the surface. Anger, betrayal, grief. But when I spoke, my voice was calm. "I spent my life fighting enemies I couldn't see," I said. "People I was told to fear." A breath. "But the real war started when my own family tried to erase me." Silence filled the room. "I'm not here for revenge." A pause. "I'm here for truth." The judge nodded once. "Then justice will follow." He turned to the defendants. "Mason Clarkson, 10 years. Courtney Peterson, 6 years. Brandon Peterson, 8 years. No parole." The gavel fell, and just like that it was over. No one moved. My father's shoulders finally sank. My sister went pale. My mother covered her eyes. The sound of handcuffs clicking was quiet, almost merciful. As they were led away, Courtney looked back one last time. Her lips trembled. I didn't look at her. The courtroom slowly emptied. Then, a voice. An older man stood in the back. A veteran, 70 maybe. He nodded at me. "We don't stay erased," he said. I nodded back. Outside, the wind was sharp, but it didn't sting. I walked down the courthouse steps, the folder in my hand, the paper that cost me everything and gave me back my name. They called me a homeless veteran. But you can't lose your home when it's built on truth. The story spread fast. By morning, headlines were everywhere. "Veteran exposes family fraud in courtroom showdown." My mother found me outside the courthouse days later. Smaller, fragile. She reached for me, then stopped halfway. "I didn't know," she whispered. I looked at her hand, then her eyes. "Maybe not," I said quietly, "but you didn't want to know either." Some truths don't need volume, they just need light. A week later, I returned to 1722 Spring Lane. The gate hung open. Police tape fluttered in the wind, but the peonies my grandmother planted were still there. Alive, pushing through soil that had been trampled by greed. I knelt beside them, brushed the dirt gently from the petals. "I kept your promise, Grandpa," I whispered. "Every lie left a trace, a breath. I just followed them home. I didn't keep the house, I donated it. To a foundation that helps veterans rebuild their lives. Let someone else find peace there, someone who still needs a place to begin again." That night, I stood by the ocean. The sky stretched wide in shades of gray and silver. Endless. Free. For the first time in years, I wasn't fighting. I was still, because justice doesn't roar, it settles. They called me a homeless veteran. But that was never true. I was never homeless. I was just unwelcome. And sometimes that hurts more than any battlefield wound. Because the people who tried to erase me now live with the echo of their own lies. And sometimes that's the real sentence. People ask if I regret taking them to court. The answer is simple. No. Because silence doesn't protect the innocent. It protects the guilty. So if you're listening and someone ever told you to stay quiet, don't. Shine light where they told you not to look. They thought they took my home. But what they really did was give me a story worth telling.